This is Sponsorly, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I'm developing a platform that will help brands and influencers connect, collaborate, and create. About 50 years ago, Andy Warhol said, "In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes." Well, the future is now, and those people are influencers, and they are world famous. But the difference is their fame is lasting a lot longer than 15 minutes. By 2020, it's going to be about a $10 billion industry, influencer marketing. And about two-thirds of marketing professionals that are currently doing influencer marketing plan on increasing their budget next year. And on the other side, influencers love it as well. Just in the last few years, there's been an enormous increase in the amount of sponsored posts. And so, because of that, there's a handful of platforms that have come around that have said, hey, let's get into this. And as I've researched all of these different platforms, one of the things that I've noticed is they really use the influencer as the product. And what I see is making a relationship the product, right? So being able to match brands and influencers as well as influencers and brands. Um, so the way that the current model works is it's a one-to-one relationship, right? So a brand will reach out to an influencer, or an influencer will reach out to a brand, and they'll make something work. But for both, it's very much they're both having to go out and find individual brands or individual influencers. There's also another way where an agent gets involved. The agent will reach out to the influencer and he'll say, "Hey, let me rep you." Then he'll reach out to the brand and he'll say, "Hey, I got this great influencer." The problem is he doesn't want to work with smaller influencers or smaller brands. He's just not going to make as much money, right? So that's where micro influencers come into play. So micro influencers versus macro influencers, right? So a micro influencer is going to have a smaller following. Their level of quality is just not going to be there, right? Macro influencers are going to have a huge following, really high quality. A lot of times they have teams of people that produce their content. But there are some benefits to working with a micro influencer, right? So you're going to get higher frequency of brand impressions if you're working with multiple micro influencers. You're going to get a lower CPM. They don't charge as much. You're going to get much more high engagement rate because their following is a lot more engaged with them. They believe them a lot more. And so, because of that, you're going to get higher conversion rates. So, the way that the system works right now is most people go out and they try and find a macro influencer that's got a really big following, right? But what if we took a different approach? What if instead of just one big influencer, what if we had a whole bunch of small influencers? And each of those smaller influencers had their own following, right? Well, so combined, their following adds up to be a lot, right? And really even potentially more. But you also get the added benefit of working with micro influencers, right? So what it does is it really begins to tip the scale in favor of working with a micro influencer. Some of the other things that become difficult when working with micro influencers is you got to go out and you got to find the right person. You got to make sure that person hasn't created any really bad content that's going to reflect negatively on your brand. You have to keep track of all the different contracts. If you're working with a dozen people, that's a dozen different contracts that you have to make sure you're working with properly. Making sure the content is assigned, they're making the right stuff. You got to manage all those projects on your own. You can see you're doing this dozens of times. It becomes a lot of work, and unfortunately, you have other things to do other than manage influencers. So that's why I've created Sponsorly. So really, at the end of the day, what it is, it's a dating service, right? Where on one side we have brands, on the other side we have influencers, and we allow them to use our platform to find one another, research one another, and then manage their project through this platform. So here you can see you can research influencers, you can research brands, you can see if a brand is launching a new product, that new product can be promoted on our site so that influencers can see it. And then what they have the ability to do is go in and submit their own concept for what they want to do on that project as well as their own bid. So Really, it's an RFP system for influencer marketing. And then from the brand side, they can go in and they can manage that project through a concept submission platform. So that is my platform. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out. My phone number is listed on the website as well as my email. I look forward to talking with you, and thanks for watching.